Okay, good morning, everyone. I think I'm audible to all of you. So far, if I reflect to you on what we have done, so we basically was in the discussion of different market structures, and we went through a primary introduction to different market structures we have, and we discussed a couple of them in detail. Particularly, we discussed about perfectly competitive market and monopolistic competitive market. And next one we wish to take into discussion is the oligopolistic market. So this is the third type of market structure that you could often interact or you often see to exist in different industries. So this is also common in agriculture industry as well, where this is a situation where there's only a few producers or few firms uh, involved in the production of output or production of a produce or a service, and there's a large set of consumers of that product or service. The very important and highlightable characteristic feature of oligopolistic market is there's only few producers are in the market, and they control all the market supply of a given product. So this is the principal nature. So that is why we say oligopoly. Oligopoly stands for a few. Right. So principally, this is the fundamental character of oligopolistic market. Industry consists any industry that consists of only a few firms or few producers. Such an industry we can categorize as oligopolistic market. And another important feature is that in these types of market or in these types of industries, you won't see a perfect competition. Competition always imperfect because there's only only there's a couple of firms involved in the production. So that firms operate in the market have the ability to change the price as well as the quantity. So the power relies with the firms, and they can decide on how much price they would charge for their product or how much volume of product they will release to the market. So this is important. These are important characteristics. So first of all, it's very important to know whether we can have an idea of whether there's a kind of a monopolistic market, or how we can recognize whether there's a monopoly. So specifically, we can use a couple of tools or couple of indicators, particularly the concentration ratio and the Herfindahl-Hirschman index. So that is stands for HHI. So these are the two parameters we can use at the outset to see or to assess or to judge whether there's whether there's an oligopoly situation in a given market or in a given industry. So simply the concentration ratio actually is a measure of percentage of industry sales accounted for a given firm. For example, suppose if there's two firms in the industry, and these two firms collectively produce, let's say, 200 units, and if we take the percentage of produce introduced to the market by one firm, for assume one firm introduces 100 and the other firm introduces 200, so another 100, collectively there's 200 units in the market. So the concentration ratio could be counted as 50% because 100 of units is introduced by each firm. So likewise, you can calculate the concentration ratio based on that. And the Herfindahl-Hursman index is, it is the uh, summation of squared sales or uh, squared sale of all firms offered for sale. For example, take the previous case, assume there's two firms and each firm produces 100 units. So the market gets 200 units. And if the price of a unit is, let's say, 10 rupees, so the sale of two firms is 10 into 200, right? So that is 20,000, sorry, the 2,000. So the square of that is the, sorry, not the square of that. So the square of each firm sale, sorry, I mixed it out. We have two firms and one firm sells 100 units, 100 unit, and so that the both firms sells 200 units. And the square of one firm sales needs to sum up with the square of the other firm's sale. If the price is 10 rupees and one firm sells 100 units, so that the square, so 100 units, and its sale is 1,000 because price of unit is 1,000. So price of unit is 10 rupees, and that firm produces 100 units. 100 into 10 is 1,000. So that is the sale of firm 1. And the sale of firm 2 is also the same because we assume second firm also sells 100 units at 10 rupee price. So that the second firm's sale is 1,000. So what is Herfindahl index is, you have to square 1,000 of first firm and the 1,000 of second firm and add them together. So that represents the Herfindahl-Hursman index. So that is the squared summation of each firm's market sale. So if the index is high, so we assume there's a very strong or high level of oligopoly situation in the market. So simply we can use these two indicators to measure the oligopolistic situation of the market. And the other thing is interdependence. So that is a character where the profits of the firms depends on each other. Now suppose if the profit of firms, if there's two firms and one firm, if one firm's profit is affected by the other firm's actions, and where there also we can judge for existence of oligopolistic market. So when there's a high level of interdependency among the firms for their profit, so we can conclude there's an oligopoly in the market, right? So this interdependence always there in oligopolistic market, unlike in the monopoly or a perfectly competitive market. Firms depends each other, and one action of one firm affects the actions of the other firm. Particularly, the profit of the one firm affects the profit of the other firm because there's only two firms and market demand is the constant. So the market has certain level of demand and the two firms has to supply that market demand. And if one firm increases their production, other firms will suffer. If one firm increases their price, other firms will suffer. So likewise, there's an always interdependence among firms in the oligopolistic market. So then what is the incentive for oligopolists to, the maximize profit? Now we know in competitive market, if they have higher price than the marginal cost, firms always have an incentive to produce more. But we cannot assume same to be happen in the oligopolistic industry, because if someone increases the output, the profit of the other firm will be affected, and also the profit of the whole industry will be affected. So that therefore we cannot assume the same thing to happen in the oligopolistic market like in competitive market. So if a price falls by one firm, and if we continue the price falls, so this also reduces the profits of the firm. So likewise, because they have to jointly decide the amount that is required by the market to be produced, sharing between two firms or three firms or four firms, because the market demand remains constant, or the industry demand remains constant. So therefore it is not it's not like in a competitive market. The price doesn't actually provides incentive for the oligopolist producer to produce. So if we assume there's two firms, finally the both firms would realize that every time they produce more, what happens? So the market price will reduce, right? So because nobody can increase the production, because the market will be overloaded. If one produces more, eventually price will decline, and this will affect the profits of both firms, right? Because if the one firm can keep increasing output further and further and further, and principally when there's more goods and services in the market, price eventually goes down. So when the prices goes down, the producer will lose their profit. So therefore, unlike in competitive markets, looking at the price only, producer cannot increase the output, because at some stage prices starts to fall down, because when they keep producing, the prices will fall down, and the market, because the market demand is limited. So what the option they have in oligopolistic market, firms have to limit their production. They cannot keep increasing their production, so they have to limit their production at some stage and share the profits among the firms. So nobody can individually decide on what to produce, what amount of goods to be produced, because if one firm increases the production, price will decline, and this is known by the other firm as well. So assume that both firms, if we assume there's two firms in the market, in the oligopolistic market, and if they agrees to they maximize their profit, so what they can do, so they can decide on how much each firm produces, right? So I have given a table down in the presentation, so I will bring this up just for you to explain. You just see this table, and this is the market situation, right? Market situation, and the price per 20 kilograms. So this is an example of seed paddy production industry, or seed paddy producing industry, and assume this is the demand, supply, and revenue relationship in the market. right? So if the market, the demand, zero output, the price would be 1,200 per 20 kg bag. And there's no any revenue at that point. And when the price go lower, down to 1,100, the quantity demanded in the market would be 10 units, and the total revenue would be 11,000. Likewise, you see the price and quantity relationship, right? So when the prices go lower, more quantities of seed paddy would be demanded in the market. And see the revenue on the other hand, revenue would be maximized somewhere at this point, where when the market demand is 60 and price is 600, the total revenue would be 36,000. So that is the highest revenue that can exist in this market. So the best option would be for the firm to adjust their production at some stage somewhere here, produce about 60 units at 600 rupee price, so that the industry's revenue would be increased. And this is the highest level of revenue that the producers can generate involving in the rice paddy industry, or the paddy seed industry, right? So if they keep further down their production, so if they keep down their, if they keep down their prices, so the quantity demanded will increase, but you see what happens to the revenue in return. Revenue will decline when a firm reduces prices further. The quantity demanded will increase, but revenue will decline. So revenue would come to an optimum or highest level somewhere at the middle point, where the market produces 60 units at 600 prices. So that would be the optimum situation for the firms involved in the industry. Otherwise, if they keep prices higher, somewhere 800 or 900, at that point also the profit, the revenue is low. And if they reduce the price further, that also declines the revenue. The firms want to keep the higher revenue, and higher revenue exists somewhere at this point, where the market has 60 demand and the price is 60. So therefore any firm cannot go below the 600 rupees per unit price, because it affects the revenue, the total revenue, right? So they can keep higher prices as well, because it lowers the total revenue. So somehow the challenge for two firms is to decide on output each firm can collectively produce in order to maximize the revenue of the industry, which is the revenue that comes to the firms operating in the industry. So I just illustrated this table you to understand the relationship between the price and the industrial revenue, which is the revenue of the two firms, because there's only two firms operating in the market, as I take an example. So also there can be, more than two firms, but for easiness, for clarity, I took only two. I assumed only there's two firms operating in the market. And if there's two firms in the market, the highest revenue that these two firms can generate by producing seed paddy is 36,000, which is corresponding to the 60 unit of seed paddy bags at 600 rupees price per bag, right? So keeping this in mind, let's go back to our discussion. As this table shows, the firms has to decide on what level of output they would produce in order to maximize their profit. So both firms, if the both firms agree, the profit maximizing output would be 60 bags. At that point, their total revenue would be just, is that 36,000 or give me a second? Yeah, not 3,600, 36,000. There's a mistake here. Let me correct it first. It should be 36,000. So the profit, the revenue is maximized at 60 bags, and that point revenue is 36,000. And if they agree to share the profit or the revenue between them, so the two firms would agree to produce, 60 bags collectively, right? 60 bag collectively. So how do they do this? How do they do this? The best way they can do, they can, negotiate and come into collusion, or they can agree on jointly maximize the profit, because one individual cannot play the game. This is a game. So because there's two firms, and both firms needs to maximize their profit, but one's action affects the other's revenue or the profit. So therefore, nobody can individually works in the industry. So they can't independently work in the industry. If they work independently, they will lose their revenue, right? So therefore, the best option in the oligopolistic market is to have associations or collusions or cartels. So thereby, they agree on the amount of output they produce and offer for sale at a given price, right? So the best option, therefore, if both seed paddy producers splits down their profit, each firm can produce 30 bags, so that they will earn 18,000 rupees as the revenue, right? So if they jointly decide, okay, this much this is the best amount that we can produce, so they can decide each firm produces 30 bags and allocate 36,000 revenue between two firms. So I'm talking here, right? So the revenue is maximized at 36,000, which is corresponding to the 60 bags at price 600. So what the two firms can do, each firm collectively can divide the 60 units among them. So each firm can therefore produce 30 bags and offer for sale. So the total market supply would be 60, and each individual in return gets 18,000 revenue, which comes into 36,000 when we sum up together, right? So every firm gets 18,000 revenue in return and agrees to produce 30 bags at 600 rupees per bag. So this is the agreement. So they can come into that agreement, right? So firm can produce 30 bags with the profit of, so with the revenue of 18,000. But do you think, would they, adhere to this agreement? So would they, obey to this agreement, or would they try to cheat this, and somebody will produce more and tries to earn more? So you just see what happens. Now assume one firm honors the agreement and the other firm starts to cheat, right? Assume that one of the producers honor the agreement, and he or she continues producing 30 bags. And while he do that, other firm starts cheating, and the firm to produce 40 bags instead of 30. You see what's happened. So as a total output now will be 70, right? Because the first firm produces 30, second firm, because of the, their, uh, what we call the rational interest, they could think, the firm two could think, okay, so why should I honor producing 30? Instead, I can increase my revenue by increasing the output to 40, and see what happens. If they increase that to 40, so the market price, the market demand, or sorry, the market supply would be 70, right? At that point, and the price will drop from 600 to 500. So you see what happens to the industry revenue then. So the before, industry revenue was 36,000. Now it goes down to 35,000. So the uh, industry's revenue is declining if one firm increases the output level. So firm two might get 20,000, but firm one might get only 15,000. So this is one scenario. And looking at this, then the firm two might know that something has happened, right? So firm two might have been cheated. So firm one also tries to cheat now. You see, if the firm two also cheats. So now what happened? If both cheats, then they will end up with producing 80 bags. So when the firm two also cheats, and he also produce 40, and total market demand, so total market supply increases to 80. As a result, price will decline to 40. So now the firm one gets 16,000, and firm two also gets 16,000. So as a result, both firms lose out of these cheating behaviors, right? So which is 2,000 less revenue compared to if they honor the agreement. If they agreed, if they acted honorably, they could have earned 30, how much? 36,000, as I remember. Yeah, 36,000. But now they earn 32,000. So as a result, each firm loses 2,000 revenue from their output. If they have honorably acted, so they won't lose this 2,000 output, 2,000 revenue from their firm. So this is the relationship. If I explain you again, now if each firm agrees to produce 30 units and offers 60 units to the market, industry's revenue is 36,000, and each firm gets 18,000 as the revenue. And if one firm cheats, right, and if he decides to increase output to 40, while the other firm keeps output to 30, the total market quantity goes to 70. So the price would goes down to 50, and total market revenue would be 35,000, right? So the firm who cheats gets 20,000, and firm who states or honored the agreement, which produces 30, will get 15,000. So if both firms cheated, suppose the second firm also cheats, and if second firm also increases from 30 to 40, now the market supply, the market quantity would be 80, which is each firm produces 40 units, and total market revenue goes down to 32,000, and each firm earns 16,000 in return. So this is the exercise that both firms, this is what happens to both firms if they decides to work independently and only with considering their profits. So finally, both firms will lose their revenue if they work independently, and cheat if they work if they do not honor the agreement, and if they start cheating, both firms will lose their profit. So this is the nature of oligopolistic market. No firm can work independently because their independent action would result loss of certain revenue from their market. Right? So therefore, if there's a few number of firms in the market, best way to keep their profits as much as higher is to collude them all together, or to form a cartel, or form an association, or form a collective of firms producing in the industry. So we know in the monopoly, monopolist can manipulate the price because there's only one producer is there. But when there's two producers, no one single producer cannot manipulate the price, right? This individual behavior is inapplicable or is impossible when there's two or three producers in the market. So what they can do, instead of selling or producing more units, probably they can reduce the price, but still they will end up with the same outcome, right? Suppose instead of increasing the output, one firm can decide, okay, I can reduce the price so that they can get more sale on their produce, but still the same outcome results in that case as well. So therefore, none of the firms cannot individually increase quantity or decrease price. So if one firm in the industry increases or decreases their output or price, the other firm will be notified this manipulation. So there are two types of competition exist in the oligopolistic market. One is the price competition. The other one is the quantity competition. So this price competition explains by Sir Joseph Berntrud, and he says, when firms sell identical products, oligopolists will repeatedly lower price to undercut competition. So that would lead ultimately to come into a perfectly competitive outcome where price equals the marginal cost, right? On the other hand, the Conant argues there's a quantity competition as well in the oligopolistic market. So if all firms sells identical product, oligopolists choose to maximize profit given the output, if they know the output of the rival, and there is an equilibrium output that allows each firm to earn profit, but below market, below monopoly, but above the normal profit, or above the competitive market profits. So this is another competition explained by Connots. So we have two types of competition you need to keep in mind in oligopolistic market. One is the price competition. So firms compete for prices, right? And the other one is quantity competition. Firms compete for quantity. So firms might think to produce more, right? And also firms might think to, uh, you know, uh, reduce price, because by reducing price, so they can get more sale of their product. And by increasing quantity, on the other hand, they can get more revenue by increasing the products they offer for sale. However, this competition has to be limited based on the other firms' actions. So nobody can individually compete for either for price or for quantity. So the competition has to be uh, decided by the two firms, and they need to come into an agreement at certain level. So this will be the output that I produce, and this will be the price that we can set in the market. So there's best theory to explain this competition. I think you may have heard about the prisoner's dilemma. I'm not sure, but the prisoner's dilemma is a game. Is an aspect of game theory, and this prisoner's dilemma helps to understand how the joint outcomes or joint decisions uh, increases the joint outcome, right? So this theory particularly focuses on, the behavior of interdependence and incentives. So if we work together, we would be able to increase joint outcomes, right? So in the monopolistic market, if they work individually, they will lose, each firm will lose. But if they work jointly or together, they can produce better outcomes, or the better output. So that is the idea. So the game theory basically deals with situation where the rewards to one player depends only on his or her own action, but also those of the other players in the game. So game theory explains simply, outcome of one's action not only depends on their own action, but depends on others' action as well. For oligopolies, so we can apply this simple theory to understand how each one's action determined by the each one's outcome, or the reward or payoff, is determined by our own actions and also by the others' actions, right? So assume like, just to explain this prisoner's dilemma, assume that there's two prisoners, right? Two prisoners, and each prisoner has an incentive to, choose an action that benefit itself at the other player's expense. So it's something like this. Now, suppose uh, two people committed a crime or made a burglary, and if one confesses, he gets um, more relief, and if he do not confesses, he got some, the punishments. It's something like that. And usually it is obvious now, as individuals are rational people, and therefore it always motivated individuals to choose actions that benefits themselves more compared to the others, right? If I am the person, and if there's two people are involved in an action, I choose my action in a way to increase my benefit. That is the rational people's behavior. So if I get more benefits, that's how, so my decision is depend on how much benefit I get, right? So I will choose an action therefore based on the benefits I get. If I get more benefits, I will decide an action, but if I'm not get more benefits, I won't take an action likewise. So the prisoner's dilemma argues that if both players acts on their self-rational behavior, both of them worse off than if they had acted cooperatively. So if they acted cooperatively, both get more benefits. But if they have acted, on self-rational, opportunistically, so they will lose. So this is a kind of a payoff matrix based on example. For example, suppose a fertilizer producers, sorry, not the fertilizer producers, the seed producers that we have discussed before. So this is a simple illustration of the prisoner's dilemma. And you see here the possible actions and the payoff matrix or the consequences. There's two prisoners, prisoner A and prisoner B. And if prisoner B remains silent about the crime they committed, and prisoner A remain also silent, both get 2 years imprisonment. Each get 2 years imprisonment. But if A gets silent and B, yes, B gets silent and A get confesses. So A gets 1 year imprisonment and B gets 8 years imprisonment. And on the other hand, if B confesses and A remains silent, A gets 8 years, B get 1 year. So what do you think, where these two prisoners would end up? What do you think? Will they remain silent? Will they both remain silent? Or will one confess and other remain silent? Or will A confess, B remain silent? Or B confess, A remain silent? Or will both confess? What do you think? Any idea? If people are rational, what they will do? If prisoners are rational people and self-interested people, what would be the reaction? Yes. So more likely, both will confess because they are rational people and they act on self-interest. So as a result, both will confess. And this will end up with each getting 5 years imprisonment, right? 5 years imprisonment. So that is the outcome, right? So if they're rational, they will confess both and both gets 5 years imprisonment, right? So it's like this, as we discussed in the previous seed paddy example. If both firms act cooperatively, they get 18,000 per each. And if one cheats, other acts or other owners the already taken decision, once will benefit additional 2,000, and others will drop by 1,500. So this can create an incentive for the firms to cheat, right? So finally, if both start cheating, uh, the revenue will be reduced for both of them and prices will drop. So looking at this, according to this theory, if they both keep their mouth shut, they will maximally get 2 years. However, this is not this is we can't expect individuals to keep shut. So when they caught by police, and every time it's more likely to the individuals try to confess, right? Since because they have own rational and self-interested behavior, so the people are rational and they try to confess, and therefore they apply the dominant strategy. So regardless of the action taken by the other player, so they try to confess themselves, and therefore finally they will end up with having long-term imprisonment. So the dominant strategy in this case is to confess, assuming that none of them, individually, they do not know what's going to happen, but finally both get confessed, as given in the example. So since both since both are taking the dominant strategy, both going to confess, and finally they will both get 5 years imprisonment. So this is we call the Nash equilibrium, right? So that is a non-cooperative equilibrium. So the result, then each player in game chooses the action that maximizes his or her payoff given that action of the other player. So therefore, Nash equilibrium sets at a higher punishment level. As you see here in the payoff matrix, both individuals are self-interested and um, what we call the rational people. So they both individually confesses without knowing each other, because prisoner B don't know what will prisoner A do, and prisoner A don't know what will prisoner B do. So therefore, finally, both will choose to confess each other. So as a result, they will get 5 years in imprisonment. But instead, if they act, if they if they remain silent, each gets 2 years. Since they are rational, they get more punishment. And if they have been cooperated, they could have been somewhere here, so having low years imprisonment. But this doesn't happen because of the rationality of the people. However, so what is important, uh, if they could have been uh, in agreement in agreement, or if they could have been jointly take a decision, collaboratively take a decision, they could have been set somewhere here, right? If they could have been set somewhere here, so that nobody will get long years of imprisonment. So people would get low years of imprisonment, and both is benefited because of that. If they keep both silent, they will they could have been having less number of imprisonment period. So, but this is not happening in the rational world, and people always try to take their dominant strategy. So players take their best action regardless of the action taken by the others. And finally, this will leads to adverse outcomes. What is the adverse outcome? So they both lose in the monopoly, sorry, in the oligopolistic market. If they decide on quantity individually, there's a chance to lose both profit. So therefore, as illustrated in the prisoner's dilemma case, it is always good to act cooperatively in the oligopolistic market. If they act cooperatively, both have an incentive to earn larger profit. So what we call this the Nash equilibrium, that is the non-cooperative equilibrium. So each player in the game choose an action that maximizes his or earn payoff and given the others action. So the Nash equilibrium is not better for the producers of the oligopolistic market, because if they do act rationally and independently, both will act irrationally, finally leading to an output which minimizes or which lowers the total payoff for the both firms, right? So in this case, as we explained in the payoff metrics of the game theory, as illustrated in the diagram before, we expect in this case the Nash equilibrium would be to both people confess, right? Both people confess. So because people tend to adapt their dominant strategy. So once this is happened, nobody will decide on act or do anything jointly hereafter, because if both confesses, both prisoners get higher imprisonment time, and after they pay off that imprisonment time, and if they spend that imprisonment time, so nobody will decide a joint action again, right? So because both have achieved Nash equilibrium, and no one will change their behavior given that the other is doing. So what we have to take as the key point from this exercise, if individuals take decisions based on their rational behavior, the outcome affects or outcome hurts both players. So that is what the point we need to take from here. So the process of oligopolistic market, or the operation of oligopolistic market, is something like that. If individuals tries to take actions for their benefit, and this will hurt both the producers in the market, like we explained in the prisoner's dilemma case, right? So therefore, the best thing that the oligopolist producers can take or can do is to cooperate, right? Is to cooperate. So what actually happens in the oligopolistic market, some sort of collusion, we call the tacit collusion, appears to begin in the long run. Appears to begin in the long run. It is a certain situation where oligopolies behave strategically, uh, having like there's an collusion, or having like there's an agreement. So people know, and people the producers work as they have an agreement, because how this is work, because when there's only handful amount of firms in the market, they know what happens in the market in the short run and in the long run. When there's only few producers, all firms know what each others will do and how they interact in the business for years, and and how they will act individually. So because of this awareness, because of this informal agreement or informal awareness, so they in the long run know the consequences of their actions, right? They will understand they can't work independently in the long run. So they know the consequences of their actions. If they act individually and opportunistically, they will know what will happen in the long run. So therefore, since individuals are known to each other, what they do, so the industry would position in a place where it's something like that every firm in the industry is known to each other, and so that they decide together about the output, right? So therefore, people in the industry or the producers in the industry start acting cooperatively, and they process or they produce or they produce their output cooperatively and divide their output among each players in the market. And this happens because inappropriate behaviors, they know that if somebody works inappropriately, it affects the actions of the others, and it will lead to, hurt both of them, right? If they do individually, if they operate individually, it if they start doing individually, or if they do not care about the actions of the other producer, there's a high likelihood to lose their oligopolistic profit. So what they do, so instead of doing separately, they will start doing together. And this cheating, they understand the cheating lose their benefits. So therefore, they will try to uh, long-term state relations in the market. So so with this interaction, so the short run and long run interaction finally will bring to a position that each producer in the market knows to each other, and each actions of the oligopolist known to each other. So they know the action and reactions of each individuals operating in the firm, and how the output or the outcome of the actions affects them. So as a result, it always promotes the cooperative behavior among the individuals in the oligopolistic market. So the oligopolists always have an incentive given by the market to cooperate and produce cooperatively and determine the joint output together, right? So finally, this will increase the industry's revenue as well as individuals' revenue. So nobody can tries to cheat, because there will be punishment without knowing them for cheating. So only option they have to be cooperative. If they cooperative, both will generate higher profit, right? So everything is happened because of this repeated interactions, right? So all firms repeatedly uh, involved in the industrial production, and firms knows how other firm reacts in reaction to one's firm, and how other firms behave in reaction to changes in the behavior of the other firm. Therefore, um, when looking at the final revenue or the final output or the final profit, um, producers intends to work more cooperatively, and they decide on how they can maximize their profit, and while watching the production of the other firm, and they try to match and decide and divide the production levels between two firms. So this reduces the risk of the cheating, and it increases the profit in the long run for both farmers, because if they both cheat, they know that both will lose. If they cooperate, they know that they will both win. So when oligopolists expect to compete each other over a period of time, individual firm will include that, or the best of their own interest to helpful to each other firm. So this is the kind of situation that will reach out in the long run. Instead of competition, they always try to be cooperative over the period of time. An individual firm will, conclude that they will understand that doing individually has no gain. So the best strategy is to cooperate with parties involved in the production of polypolistic market. So they, even though there's no kind of enforceable agreements they have been signed between individual firms to limit the output or to raise the price, they like act as they have an such agreement. So there's no actually kind of signed agreement among oligopolistic firms in the industry, but in the long run, they act like they have such an agreement, but which is invisible. They still act like they have an agreement, and they agreed on certain limit of output and agreed on certain amount of price. So therefore, this tacit collusion emerge. Tacit collusion is something like intangible collusion, so which is firms produces and raises prices in a way that raises each other's profit, even though they have no made any formal agreement. So it's a kind of a collusion, which there's no signed agreement between them, but still they work as they have an agreement, because individuals know any action they take affects themselves and affects the others as well. Finally, individuals' self-interested decisions affects the market. So therefore, they don't try to cheat, and they try to act more cooperatively. And the tacit collusion therefore emerge in the long run in the oligopolistic market. Tacit collusion is something that's a cooperation between individual oligopolist firms operate in the market. It's like that they knowing what amount of output each producer produces, and what is the amount of output that the market produce. So as a result, when this tacit collusion emerge, so oligopolists will produce their products at a competitive level, and they keep the prices above the average total cost. So therefore, as a result of collusion, as a result of tacit collusion, both firms will produce at a price where the cost is much lower than their price. So they will produce, or they will keep the prices higher than the cost of producing that product, and this results profits for firms, right? So we know that, we learn that when the price of a product is greater than the average cost of producing that product, there's an excess, that is the price, that is the profit. So the collusion finally leads to reach out this situation where the firms produces their products at a price above the average total cost. Right? However, so it is also need to notice that when there's more number of firms, this tacit collusion is less likely to be success, because it is apparent that when there's many firms, it is very difficult to monitor each and individual's actions uh, in the game. uh, when there's only few, it is easy to monitor and observe individuals actions. It is easy to be cooperative when there's only few firms, but when the number of firms increases, cooperation becomes a bit difficult because of the monitoring difficulties and because of the observational difficulties, right? So when there's more firms, there's high likelihood to start cheating, and the tacit agreement will be deteriorated, so it can be detected. So easier form is to enter the, so it's more easy to enter if there's no collusion. The collusion is possible, or especially the tacit collusion is possible when there's only few producers, a couple of producers in the market. uh, it is very common in the our everyday's life as well. It's something like that, like if you have very known people around you, it is very easy to cooperate. But if there's no if there's more people, it is very easy to very difficult to cooperate. For example, like think of vote allocation decision in a small tank and in a larger tank, and when there's multiple users of the tank water. Taking water allocation decision in a small village tank would be much easy, because they are the most in most cases, individual farmers are known to each other, and they know for years, and the cooperative behavior is more likely to take place in small tanks compared to large tanks, because in the large tanks there's large number of farmers with diverse interest, and they are not known to each other, so that it make difficult for among them to come into a collusion or cooperative decision. This is a very familiar case in agriculture. So this I just explaining a simple case for this uh, cooperative action or the cooperative behavior, uh, which can happen in the oligopolistic market. And a simple explanation that we can take from agriculture is this vote allocation decision, or whatever decision you think. When you make a cooperative decision with a small group of people, it is more likely to success. But when you take a cooperative decision with large number of people, it is very difficult, and it's less likely to be success when there's more people. So similar thing is applicable to oligopolistic market as well. When there's many producers, right? Cooperation will be difficult. So therefore, the tacit collusion may not be successful, and individuals will try to act more rationally and self-interested motives. And finally, the industrial revenue will go down, or what we call the joint outcome, or the joint profit will be lower than the profit that they can earn by acting cooperatively. So the collusion is also difficult when the products are more complex and the pricing schemes are more complex. So tacit agreements is difficult to work when there's variety of products and relate and services, right? So when there are more products and more services within that oligopoly producers, collusion is difficult to emerge. So therefore, the collusion is more possible when there's less diverse product. And suppose there's 5 producers, and all producers produces the same product. Under that circumstances, the collusion can be emerged. And also, the collusion is also difficult in the oligopolistic market, where there's differences in the interest. For example, if firms have quite diverse characteristics and interest, so these agreements are less likely to take place. So some firms may not share the common interest. So, for example, you take the rice milling industry in Sri Lanka. So they have diverse, operational levels. So some are a large scale, some are medium scale. So therefore, their interest can be different, and making a collusion could be difficult among the rice millers because of the diverse interest. And the bargaining power of the buyers. So this is another important aspect, like another way to another way to think about the collusion is from the perspective of buyers. When the buyers have significant bargaining power over the products, and if it is, the bargaining power created by the consumers. So if they have much influence on the producers' products, collusion is difficult for the producers, right? Because suppose now if consumers stop consuming something, or consumers temporarily um, stop consuming some product offered by the oligopolistic producers, so the collusion couldn't be achieved. So in that case, the pressure comes from the consumers, influence the bargaining position of the producers, and therefore the collusion or the cooperation cannot be happen, or it is more challenging for the producers in the oligopolistic market when there's a market, the pressure from the buyers. And the product differentiation is also another challenge that collusion makes difficult, right? So when there's various types of products with various features or the colors or sizes, and when the products are not identical, the collusion cannot be, it's achieving collusion is difficult, right? So, and instead, creation of brand loyalty, right? When, even though the market is oligopolies, but some producers may have created the brand, and when there's a brand loyalty, the collusion is difficult to be achieved. And also, um, uh, when there's differences in characters of products, the collusion is difficult to be achieved, right? So this is another aspect that the collusion is difficult to be achieved when there's differences in the product. Right. So let's talk to the other side of the competition. We talked about the quantity leadership, and let's talk about the price leadership. So the price leadership is a strategy that firms choose to select the price or sets the price, and rival firms tries to follow it. So usually this is a strategy in the oligopolistic market, where the dominant players decide the price, and other follow players of the market, or the oligopolist production follow try other firms producing in the oligopolist market tries to follow the leader's price. So thereby the tacit agreement is achieved. So because the price leader has the significant percentage of market power and higher than the others, and ultimately when the leader increases the price, the followers will also have to increase the price, and thereby the tacit agreement can take place in the price leadership as well. So it is because of the reputation of the price leader, or uh, the brand loyalty established by the price leader will leads them to have some authority over the market. um, and as a result, when the price lead increases price, followers may follow the same path, and they will also increase the price and their products. So because if the followers do not increase the price, consumers might think that their products are inferior, so that uh, the following firms also do not want to lose their market share or the revenue. So as a result, um, the follower firms also will follow the leader, and prices of the products will be put up by the follower firms. And these are the non-price competition that can exist in the oligopolistic market. Though we discussed price competition, quantity competition, in addition to that, there's price competition also exists. Non-price competition also exists in the oligopolistic market. You may have seen that the offering of warranties, for example, when you take, for example, the agrochemical industry or agricultural machinery industry, these are most likely oligopolistic markets. So there's no so much of suppliers. Take, for example, fertilizer. So there's only a handful amount of fertilizer companies operating in the world, so operating in Sri Lanka. So therefore, fertilizer industry is something like that, oligopolistic. And also some of the chemicals, agrochemicals. There's only a handful amount of agrochemical companies operating in the agriculture industry in Sri Lanka. So the agrochemical industry is therefore can be considered as as oligopolist industry. And if you have some experiences, and if you can reflect on some experiences, what happens in these markets, in some cases, uh, 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 the industry players or the oligopolist producers offer some warranties. Suppose if you want to buy a tractor, the tractor seller will offer you some warranties for parts, or if you want to buy a power sprayer, so they will offer some warranties. So thereby the companies create a non-price competition. And also the customer service. Suppose combine harvesters, for example, there's only few combine harvest providers or the sellers in Sri Lanka, and they have established services or service facilities for their customers. Some of them have the mobile servicing facilities or the mobile servicing units. When they sold out a combine harvester, company goes to the farmer's place or the farmer's geography or village to provide the mechanical services. And some credit card withdrawal services or reward services. For example, if you purchase on a credit card, there are some schemes they provide, the rewards. So if you purchase more and more, you will get more rewards, and probably at the end, maybe after a year or two, you can reclaim those rewards. And also the personal shoppers. So especially this is the case where many of these oligopolist producers do more personal types of selling. They go to the farmers, and they go to the the business people, and they talk to them in order to sell their products, right? So these are some of the non-price competition examples that you can uh, have, or that you can experience in the oligopolistic market, particularly in um, agriculture markets where there are oligopolist situations, right? So this is more common. The oligopolist agricultural market includes most of the agricultural machinery, agrochemicals, and fertilizer, and other agricultural implements, for example, sprayers and sprinkler irrigation systems. So we don't have, so many number of irrigation, drip irrigation, or the sprinkler irrigation providers in Sri Lanka. So there's maybe 10, 15, or 20 companies who provides such facilities. And also, the greenhouse builders. So these are some examples for agricultural oligopolistic markets. So in reality, actually, what we see, um, oligopolistic markets are more common compared to perfectly competitive or the monopoly market. However, it is very difficult to study them because of the uh, diversity and the variety of oligopolistic nature. So studying oligopolistic market, therefore, it's not easy like monopoly or the perfect competition. For example, agrochemical industry and the fertilizer market best explains some of the oligopolistic markets, and sugarcane industry or the sugar market, which is an oligopoly, and gas market, rice milling industry. So these are some of the appropriate examples of oligopolistic industries, particularly agriculture related and non-agriculture as well. So gas market is non-agriculture, but I just took that example you to illustrate what are the oligopolistic market that exist in the industrial sector as well. So in most cases, these are the prominent types of markets, oligopolistic market. And vehicle industry, for example, also has a sort of oligopoly. Almost everywhere you find oligopoly markets around your vicinity. So this is more common, right? So we use the benchmarks of competition and monopoly in order to analyze or judge the oligopolistic behavior of oligopolistic market, in order to analyze efficiency and inefficiency of oligopolistic market. However, you need to notice that firms can establish a cooperation or collusions or cartels in the oligopolistic market in order to decide on a common price and the common quantity that they offer to the market. However, with the rise of number of firms, collusion also becomes difficult. So we need to understand that as well. If we take the world scenario, um, OPEC is one of the world's largest and most influential cartel. So the OPEC is oil producing and export countries, Organization of Oil Producing and Export Countries. OPEC stands for that. And this is a cartel because in the world there's only limited number of countries who produce fossil fuels. And how do they decide how much of oil barrels produced within a given year is come from the decision of the cartel. So this cartel decides how much barrels are being produced by the cartel and what amount each country produces, right? So if they decide, okay, so in this year, the cartel decides to produce uh, 20 trillion fuel barrels of fossil fuel, and this 20 trillion is then allocated to different countries who produces and who are the members of this cartel. So likewise, they jointly decides the output of the industry, and they jointly decides the price of the industry, and hence everyone or every producer or every oil producer includes in the cartel gains higher profits. Their profits, they profits because they always tries to keep the price above the average cost. This is possible when they cartelized, when they form a group or when they form an organization. These decisions can be taken. But if they have act individually on their rational interest, the rational behavior, rational interest, opportunistic interest, the industry's profit would have been lower than what it is at present. However, they maintain that or the energy price and the profit of the industry based on the cartel they produced, they form. So in Sri Lanka, so we don't see such sort of very influential cartels, but there are some certain types of organizations or the collusions emerge to control some of the products. One example is this Rice Millers Association, but there also you have, I think there's two types of associations. One is large millers and the other one is small and medium scale Rice Millers Association. So there are two cartels there. But why these two cartels are? Because they have different skills, different interest, and different capabilities. So their product differentiation as well there. So that's why you see two types of cartels. So except that, there's nothing pop into my mind about cartels in Sri Lanka. But if you have some experience, probably you can, bring this up. Okay, so with this, I conclude today's discussion on oligopolistic market. So if I wrap up what we have discussed today, oligopolist is a kind of a market structure where there's only few producers products or the services, and in that case individuals decisions affects the industry's profits as well as the other producers profits. So therefore there's a high likelihood in the oligopolistic markets to operate cooperatively rather than operating individually. Oligopolistic market, there's an incentive to produce together based on an agreement. So in all the producers comes into an agreement to produce how much and to sell at what price. So they come into an agreement on these two terms. It's because acting individually is not, benefited for them. So if they try to individually act, as we demonstrated using that table, individual firm can, think of increasing the output, but in the long run, they will lose profit, right? So the best option, therefore, oligopolist firms operate in the oligopolistic market is to take joint decisions, decide on common output and share the output among the firms and produce accordingly. So this would lead to increase the industry's profitability as well as individuals' profitability. That is what that prisoner's dilemma example explained to you. If I go back to that slide again, and if you see here, so this is the cooperative outcome. If none of the prisoners confess, they will get less years imprisonment. But if they are not cooperating, and if one confesses, the person who confesses gets less years of imprisonment. And these are the diagonal choices here. If A confesses, he gets 1 year imprisonment, but B confesses, it gets 8 years imprisonment. And if B confesses, it gets 1 year imprisonment, and A gets 8 years imprisonment. So this is the possible outcome, because individuals are rational, and if they don't care about what others do, so they take the decision that benefits them more. And as a result, you see the joint outcome. If both separately without a cooperation decides to confess, everybody gets 5 years imprisonment. So the A don't know that the B confess, and B don't know that A confesses. Without knowing each other, both have at the end confesses, and it results 5 years imprisonment for both. And altogether it's 10 years, right? It's 10 years. So the joint outcome is 10 years imprisonment. And you see, if they have been acted cooperatively, right? See here, if they have been able to keep silent, A and B come into an agreement. Okay, if then එක හරියට මේ වගේ දැන් අපි දෙන්නේ හොරකමක් කරලා පොලිසිය ඇල්ලුවොත් අපි දෙන්නම සද්ද නැතුව ඉමු කියලා decide කෙරුවොත්, so both will get less years imprisonment. හැබැයි අපි දෙන්න opportunistically behave වුණොත්, මම පාවලා දුන්නොත් මට අඩු අවුරුදු ගානක් හිරේ ඉන්න වෙයි කියලා මම හිතුවොත්, so what I do, I confess. එතකොට අනිත් එක්කෙනත් හිතුවොත් එයා පාවලා දුන්නොත් එයාට අඩු අවුරුදු ගානක් හිරේ ඉන්න වෙන්නේ කියලා. So without knowing each other's decision, අපි දෙන්නම පාවලා දුන්නොත් දෙන්නටම වෙන්නේ මෙන්න මේ outcome එක. දෙන්නම ඉන්නේ red zone එකේ. දෙන්නටම අවුරුදු 5 ගානේ හිරේ වෙන්න වෙනවා. එතකොට joint outcome එක 10 years together. හැබැයි මෙතන joint outcome එක 2 years. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි cooperative වුණොත් අපිට විඳින්න වෙන හිර දඬුවමේ කාලය, so we will be in less years in prison if we act cooperatively. So this is a good scenario where you can explain in the oligopoly situation. So in an oligopoly market, if individuals work independently and if they act on their rational behavior, what happens? So they will lose in the long run. So they will be losing long run. Short run, so they will have some benefit, but in the long run, so they will use. So the better option is to cooperate and act together, so that will maximizes their benefit. So this is the situation, or this is what happens in the oligopolistic market. So I think with this I wish to stop here for today. So Would like to entertain any questions if you have. So I think this is kind of bit difficult section to understand, but I think you get some idea because it involves bit hard theories about the oligopolist behavior. So, what I wanted you to know, you just have a basic understanding of what is oligopolistic market and how the output is decided in the oligopolistic market, and understand that there's no individual can act individually in the oligopolistic market. So if they act individually, they have to go out from the industry, and only thing that the oligopolist can increase the price is by means of an agreement, right? So it's not like competition, not like monopoly. um, if they decide jointly and if they decide together, both firms, all producers will benefit in the more oligopolistic market. So we have some agricultural oligopolist markets, as I illustrated you. Um, so still they try to keep the competition in terms of non-price offers, right? So if they can't produce for quantity, if they can't produce for price, but they try to keep the competition in the oligopolistic market in terms of other means like product warranties or the guarantees and services associated with them, and some offerings. Likewise, there are some other non-price competition going on in the oligopolistic industry as well. Okay, so with this wrap up, I wish to stop here for today. So I think we have to discuss monopoly market as the last market structure probably in the next week. Okay, so before we wind up, do you have any questions? I understand that this may not have been, the fully comprehend to you, but just don't worry about. So just have a basic understanding of what is this, and try to uh, have an idea about some common examples of oligopolistic market and how they decide the price, and what happens to the profits of the oligopolistic firms when there's more firms and less firms, and the reality of having a cooperation or the collusion between and among firms in the oligopolistic industry. Okay, so any question? Right, so if there's no question, let's stop here for today. So we'll meet next week, and wish you rest of your Sunday is a funny one and a fun Sunday evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye.